Hey, it's Ben. Just want to give you a casual tour of my office and studio here in Clearwater, Florida, so you can get an idea of what kind of environment I use to capture these videos and to also create art. So let's go for a tour. Let's start here at my desk. And you'll notice there are multiple light sources. The one on the left is my primary, the one on the right is my fill light, and there's one more light if I swing to my left, right there. And that's because there are three cameras in here. There's one camera right there, which is what I start videos with. There's a corner camera, and then there's a straight on camera. Those are all full frame Sony mirrorless cameras. And so therefore, these two light sources serve when I am talking to the camera that's straight on or at an angle, and these two are what's used when I talk on the side. If we also take a look at what's on my desk, over here is my MacBook Pro, and it ends up being my monitor where it shows me the contents of those three cameras right here, and then that's my actual Mac screen over there on the right. And I can see my microphone levels coming in here, and down there it will usually tell me when I'm recording and how much space I have left on the hard drive that I'm capturing to. And that's all because this has an HDMI capture card. That's where all that information is coming from. And the other end of that, it goes to right here. That is known as an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and it has four HDMI inputs back here. That's for the three cameras plus an output from my iMac. I can switch between those using these buttons while I'm recording, so I'm actually doing editing while I record. I'm switching the cameras, and if I hit this, it gives me a nice fade between the transitions and such. This over here is a Stream Deck. If I press this button, all the lights in the room turn to the right settings for recording. If I hit that, they all turn off. And that kind of stuff. That's a new addition, so I don't have it fully implemented yet. Over here is my microphone interface. That takes a professional microphone that has an XLR cable and converts it to USB, and then I can control the volume. It's called an Evo 4. And I probably wouldn't buy that one again. And the main reason is in Florida, sometimes our power goes out briefly. And when it does, this little feature here called 48 volt ends up getting turned off, and my mic needs that. If that gets turned off, I won't have usable video, and I'd like one that had a thing that wouldn't switch off. Then over here is my speed editor, and this makes editing video very quickly for those videos that need editing, because I can power through the content using this wheel, and then I can do in and out points, add transitions and everything else in a dedicated kind of keyboard. And so that's my setup. This is both where I process my images and where I record videos and do editing. So that's the desk setup. I'm into vintage stuff. So here is about a 1959 Philco Predicta Holiday black and white TV, so I can watch TV at my desk. And over here are some vintage paintings that I don't think they're quite as old as the movies that they depict, but they are many decades old. And then if we swing around, here's the other side of my desk, and it's one of my service station images. Above that, right up there, I'm going to be putting a neon clock that has green neon to match this. And down here, this is a ray gun made out of a blender handle, salt and pepper shaker, and other things. Let's see over here, there's a robot. This is made out of a toothpick dispenser, a watch band, marbles inside of thimbles, a multimeter, and little muffin pans. That was made by a local artist. Some more of my Streamline collection. I'm into Streamline modern design. And then the bookcases, which just have all sorts of things that I enjoy, including these little bitty neon signs that are individually lit. Those are made by a local artist. If you want to see his work, look up the Vintage Neon Project on Instagram. And so it gives you some idea of my various vintage collections. Then this is the upper part of my studio. It also has back here a bathroom. And it's just a plain bathroom with a shower. And I use that Coke machine as my refrigerator. Then there's a lower studio, and that's more dedicated to making art. And so down here, this used to be the office of an architectural firm, and now it's my studio. And so there you can see more little vintage collections, although the rocket is not vintage. Come across here, a little drafting table with some art supplies underneath it. This over here is a printmaking press. And that's where I can do all sorts of art, but I specialize in something known as a colograph. And this is an example of a colograph. A colograph is created by taking mat board, the same kind of mat board you'd put around a picture when you frame it, and use an X-Acto knife and you cut away the parts where you want to print ink. And you peel off the top layer of the mat board. And once you've done that for all the areas where you want to print ink, you seal this with shellac so that the ink can't actually absorb in. And then you put ink on this. I do it by hand, rubbing the ink on. And then after the ink's been applied, you take newspaper and you actually rub it again. And the newspaper removes the ink only from the raised portions. And the ink stays in those recesses. So then if you get a sheet of paper that you put over this, you can put it underneath these felts that are right here, and you run it underneath this big roller, which puts a bunch of pressure on it, and the paper gets pushed into those indents and it grabs the ink. You actually do it in 2 steps. The first step is to print the color. And the color you actually cut out of a mat board like this. And you just use an X-Acto knife. You peel off the top layer so it's rough and it can accept ink. And then you make different pieces for the different colors that you want to print. And so it goes together kind of like a puzzle. Here are the other pieces. And then you ink up the color ones and you print that first. So all you have is solid color printed. And then you make a second pass where this black would get printed on top of it. And then the end result looks like this. And it's got cool texture, and I like the process. Also down here I have stuff I'm about to light paint. Like here's an old Electrolux Triple X vacuum cleaner. There's all sorts of vintage stuff back there as well. Hard to see though. And over here are my flat files. And inside of here is camera gear, lighting gear, bottom is tripods, that type of thing. And I also collect a bunch of stuff. I collect vintage bone aluminum ads. These will eventually go on the wall that is near the bathroom, on the way to the bathroom. I collect French car concept illustrations from the 1930s. And these will eventually get framed and will end up being on the wall right there. But that's all those. Another bone ad. And I also collect Boris Artsy Bashoff art, which is all these things that depict machinery as if they're kind of human. And those will eventually get framed and go on the wall right over in here. But I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Then my current project is to fill this area of the wall all the way over to here, all the way up. This whole area will be covered by this, which is a billboard that I've owned for at least 30 years, and it's really detailed, and that is going to get mounted so it will be right up on that wall. Then over here's my little spot for reading with my bookcase. It's near Christmas, so I got a little Christmas tree hanging out there. And out this way, there's actually a pond out there. So it's kind of fun. And our vintage bus is just over that hedge. And this is my studio. That's where I make art. I also take photographs in here so I can move things around to accommodate different things. But then there's more. If I go through this orange door, that's going to take you to our garage. And if I go downstairs, and in Florida it is rare to have a basement, but this is what I call my laboratory. And if we go in, here's that neon clock I'm going to put above the picture that's in my office. It's missing its band that would cover up the neon, but there's that. But this is where I work on vintage electronics. So here are more of those Philco Predicta televisions. Those are all 17 inchers. And inside of them, this is what their guts look like. And their guts are made out of vacuum tubes. That's what these guys are. And over time, these components wear out and get out of spec, and they need to be replaced. And so here you can see some that haven't been replaced. They're vintage. And over here you can see some of these yellow things. That's where they have been replaced. So then we can get those TVs working again. And then down here we got more of those components. And we got test gear like oscilloscopes, or up here, this is a video pattern generator. So once I get the TV going, I hook this up to it and I can tell it to apply various patterns to make sure everything's in sync. And then over here is where I actually work on the electronics. And in this case, I'm not working on too much electronics other than electric clocks. These are electric clocks from the 1930s or 40s. I'm currently restoring those. Here's an old Nixie tube clock. And then here's some more test gear, oscilloscopes, frequency counters, that kind of thing. And then you can see more vintage clocks that I'm restoring. There's a whole bunch of those. I have mainly mechanical digital clocks. Here's some really old flip clocks from the 1930s. And there's even more up here. Check this thing out. It's digital, but it looks that old. Pretty crazy. And more of those TV parts. Here's a head of one of those TVs like the one up on my desk. That's a brand new picture tube sitting there that's never been used. And so on. So this is what I call my underground laboratory. And so now you've seen my office, my studio, and my lab. Hope you enjoyed it.